Welcome to a deep dive into some pretty fascinating stuff.
Hmm.
We're going to be looking at a 1984 research report called Changing Images of Man.
Out.
And
I love it already.
it's,
Yeah.
really interesting. It's like a time capsule of ideas from, leading thinkers of that era,
Right.
trying to understand how we see ourselves as humans
Yeah.
and how those images shape the world around us, and
Mm.
maybe, where those images might be taking us.
What's so fascinating about this report is that it doesn't just, lay out different ways that
Yes.
humans have kind of seen themselves throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
It actually connects those self-perceptions to, really real-world problems.
Oh, interesting.
Almost like a
So it's saying like,
societal operating system that's kind of running in the background.
yeah,
Yeah.
an operating system. I like that.
Yeah.
So it's saying that the way we see ourselves,
Hmm.
like our abilities, our purpose, our
Yeah.
relationship to the world, that's not just like,
No.
abstract philosophy. That has real consequences.
Exactly. The report really goes into how
Yeah.
these
Hmm.
images act like a powerful magnetic pull,
Okay.
shaping our decisions, our institutions, even the trajectory of society as a whole.
Okay, so give me an example. Like,
Yeah.
how has a particular image of man
Hmm.
actually played out in history?
Well, let's take the economic man.
Okay.
This image emerged during the Industrial Revolution,
Okay.
and it basically cast humans as, rational actors
Right.
driven by material gain and a desire to conquer nature.
Oh, so this image fueled all that innovation and progress,
Right.
but also maybe led to some of the,
Hmm.
the environmental and social issues that we grapple with today.
Yeah.
It's almost like we were so focused on building the machine that we kind of forgot about
Oh, right.
the humans running it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key points
Yeah.
that the report's trying to make.
Yeah.
This economic man image,
Mm-hmm.
while effective for a time,
Yeah.
may have actually created a kind of spiritual and ecological deficit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So if this economic man is kind of outdated,
Hmm.
what are some other selfies?
Yeah, what are some other
Yeah.
self-portraits that humanity has kind of used throughout history?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the report takes us on this whirlwind tour,
Okay.
starting with the ancient Near East.
Okay.
And there we see these contrasting views.
Okay.
Like the Semitic image of humans as servants of God,
Okay.
separate from nature, and tasked with dominion over it.
That's pretty different from what we were just talking about with
Right.
the economic man. It's
Yeah.
much less about, individual gain and more about
Right.
fulfilling a divine purpose or something.
Yeah,
Were
exactly.
there other perspectives even back then?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Even within the same region,
Okay.
you have the Gnostics,
Hmm.
and they saw humans as potential knowers, seeking self-knowledge for salvation.
Oh, interesting.
Their focus wasn't on, material wealth
Right.
or even, earthly dominion. It was about inner transformation
Okay.
and understanding the true nature of reality.
So even thousands of years ago,
Yeah.
there were already all these different operating systems.
Right. All these different ways of seeing
Yeah.
ourselves in the world.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing the report doesn't just stay in the ancient Near East?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It hops over to ancient Greece,
Oh, okay.
where we see this image of the tragic hero emerge.
Okay.
And this is where we see the emphasis on individual excellence and virtue,
Mm.
striving for a meaningful life on Earth.
Yeah.
It's almost like a bridge between those earlier worldviews
Okay.
and, the individualism that we see today.
So are they saying that, like, the ancient Greeks basically invented the individual?
Well, not quite, but they were certainly influential in shaping Western ideals
Okay.
of personal growth and self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
Think of figures like, Socrates
Right.
or Plato. They really embody that spirit of inquiry
Yeah.
in the pursuit of a virtuous life.
Right. That's pretty different from seeing humans as,
Yeah.
servants of a higher power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how these different selfies have really shaped different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing the East has its own unique perspective on all of this.
Absolutely. Eastern traditions,
Mhm.
like Hinduism and Confucianism,
Yeah.
offer enduring images of the human as a spiritual being,
Okay.
capable of transcending limitations and connecting to something greater.
Do they give any specific examples of what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, think of the yogi in Hinduism,
Okay.
seeking liberation through meditation and self-discipline,
Right.
or the superior man in Confucianism,
Okay.
striving for moral perfection and social harmony. These images emphasize, inner development
Mm-hmm.
and a connection to a higher consciousness.
So it's not about conquering nature
Right.
or amassing wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's about mastering the self and finding harmony
Exactly.
with the universe.
Yeah.
Okay, but with all these different images floating around,
Right.
how did modern science, with all of its discoveries,
Yeah.
impact these long-held views of what it means to be human?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay, hit me.
So, for centuries,
Mm-hmm.
the dominant Western worldview was really heavily influenced by Newtonian physics,
Okay.
which basically presented a very mechanistic universe.
Right, like a clockwork universe.
Exactly, clockwork universe.
Yeah.
But then along comes 20th century science and starts to kind of
Right.
challenge that very neat and tidy picture.
I'm sensing a paradigm shift coming on.
Totally, a paradigm shift.
What kind of discoveries shook things up?
Well, modern physics,
Hmm.
with theories like relativity and quantum mechanics, starts to reveal a universe that is far more dynamic and interconnected
Okay.
than previously imagined.
Yeah.
It's like suddenly realizing that the world is in 3D instead of 2D.
I can see how that would really throw a wrench into our understanding of ourselves and our
Mhm.
place in the universe.
Exactly.
Did they talk about any other scientific fields
Yes.
that challenged our kind of image of man?
Definitely.
Okay.
Evolutionary biology, especially Darwin's theory of natural selection,
Right.
presented this view of life as constantly evolving and adapting,
Mm-hmm.
shaped by these forces of chance and selection.
Yeah.
And it really challenged this idea of humans as a fixed
Right.
and unchanging species.
It's like the pinnacle of creation.
Right, exactly.
We become just another part of this
Uh-huh.
grand evolutionary dance.
All the way.
It makes you wonder if evolution favors, increasing complexity.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for the future of human consciousness?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And that takes us to kind of the heart of this report.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient philosophy to cutting-edge science.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a glimpse of this, new self-portrait,
Yeah.
what it might look like.
We'll dive into that when we come back.
Great.
Welcome back.
All right, so
All right.
where do we go from here?
Let's dive back into this report
Okay.
and
Yeah.
kind of start peeking into the possible futures.
Yeah.
It lays out, and it gets pretty real pretty fast.
Okay.
Remember that societal operating system we talked about?
Right.
Well, the report argues that the code running that system, the economic man image,
Mm-hmm.
may be leading us down a path
Okay.
with some pretty serious consequences.
I'm getting some Black Mirror vibes.
I know, right?
Yeah, what kind of future are we talking about here?
They call it technological extrapolation.
Technological extrapolation.
And it's basically a future where,
Mm-hmm.
we double down on technology
Okay.
to solve all our problems,
Right.
but end up creating a society
Mm-hmm.
that feels more controlled, more fragmented, and ultimately less human.
Oh, okay. That does sound a little ominous.
Yeah.
What would that look like
In
in everyday life?
yeah, like imagine a world of constant surveillance where algorithms are tracking your every move
Right.
and kind of nudging you towards choices that benefit the system.
Oh, wow.
Not necessarily you.
Right. So it's not like.
It's a world where human connection is increasingly mediated by screens
Mm-hmm.
and individual expression is kind of stifled in favor of efficiency and conformity.
Right. So it's not some evil AI taking over.
Right.
It's more like we become so reliant on technology that
Yeah.
we lose sight of what it means to be human.
Exactly.
We trade our autonomy for convenience and end up, living in this gilded cage.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the report points out how this can happen in very subtle ways. Like,
Interesting.
for example, the increasing specialization of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
We become so hyper-focused on our narrow fields of expertise
Right.
that we lose the ability to see the bigger picture.
Yeah. It's like we're all experts in our own tiny rooms.
Right, exactly.
But no one's tending to the house.
No one's tending to the house as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that makes us vulnerable
exactly.
to manipulation or.
When we don't understand
Yeah.
the complex systems
Yeah.
that are shaping our lives, we're more easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
We accept solutions that benefit the few at the expense of the many,
Right.
all in the name of progress or efficiency.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That is a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah, it's
They didn't just focus on the negative, right?
no. Thankfully, they offer a more hopeful alternative.
Okay, good.
They contrast that technological extrapolation
Mm-hmm.
with a path they call evolutionary transformation.
Evolutionary transformation.
which is all about,
Yeah.
shifting to a new image of man,
Yeah.
one that recognizes our interconnectedness with nature,
Okay.
values personal growth and self-realization,
Okay.
and acknowledges the multifaceted nature of human experience.
Right. So it's less about conquering nature
Mm.
with technology
Right.
and more about living in harmony with it.
Exactly.
Okay. What does that look like?
Well, they talk about,
Yeah.
cultivating an ecological ethic,
Okay.
which means deeply understanding our interdependence with the natural world
Mm-hmm.
and committing to living sustainably.
So instead of seeing ourselves as separate from nature,
Right.
we start to see ourselves as part of it.
Exactly. This is a shift in perspective
Yeah. Yeah.
as much as it is a change in behavior.
Right. A change in our relationship with the world.
Exactly. And this shift in perspective extends beyond our relationship.
Okay.
With the natural world, it also encompasses our interactions
Mm-hmm.
with each other,
Okay.
fostering a sense of global community and shared responsibility
I like that.
for the well-being of all.
It's like we're upgrading the operating system
Mm-hmm.
to include like compassion and cooperation as like
Totally.
core features.
Yeah, I love that.
But they also mentioned this self-realization ethic.
Yes.
What did they mean by that?
So
Isn't self-realization kind of a personal thing?
it is personal,
Okay.
but the report argues
Yeah.
that it also has social implications.
Interesting.
Self-realization in this context isn't about,
Right.
achieving material success
Right.
or climbing the social ladder.
Mm-hmm.
It's about cultivating our inner potential,
Okay.
developing our unique talents and abilities,
Yeah.
and contributing to the world
Mm-hmm.
in a way that feels meaningful.
So it's about finding our purpose and living authentically,
Yeah.
but also recognizing that our individual growth is connected to the
Oh, yeah.
well-being of the whole.
It's about recognizing
Okay.
that true fulfillment comes from contributing to something larger than ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's our community, our planet,
Right.
or even just the lives of those around us.
I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But okay, let's be realistic here.
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually move from our current image of man,
Yeah.
which seems so entrenched in our systems and structures,
Right.
to this more
That's the million-dollar question.
right?
The report acknowledges
Yeah.
that this transformation won't be easy.
Right.
It requires a fundamental shift
Mm.
in our thinking, our values,
Okay.
and even our institutions.
So where do we even begin?
Well, they talk about
Yeah.
the need to evolve our economic systems,
Okay.
beyond a purely growth-oriented model.
Right. Because in a world of finite resources,
Exactly.
endless growth doesn't really make sense.
Exactly. Endless economic growth is simply not sustainable.
Right.
So they point toward
Yeah.
an economic model
Mm-hmm.
that prioritizes well-being,
Mm-hmm.
sustainability, and the equitable distribution of resources.
So it's a shift from valuing quantity to valuing quality,
Exactly.
from measuring progress by GDP to measuring it by... Yeah.
Factors like happiness, well-being, and ecological health.
Right. That sounds amazing in theory,
Right.
but I can't imagine like our current,
Yeah.
economic powers that be
Yeah.
giving up their pursuit of endless growth.
Yeah, you're right. It would require a massive shift in mindset,
Yeah.
not just from those in power,
Right.
but from all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But the report suggests
Yeah.
that if we don't make this shift,
Mm-hmm.
the consequences will be far greater.
Right. Like that whole
Remember that
technological extrapolation.
technological extrapolation scenario.
Yeah.
That's what we're risking if we stay on our current trajectory.
Okay. Yeah. Point taken.
Yeah.
So we need to rethink our economic systems.
Mhm.
What else do they suggest?
Well, they also talk about the need
Okay.
for a transformation in our education systems.
Yeah. Interesting.
Instead of a system focused on rote learning
Right.
and standardized tests,
Yeah. Yeah.
they envision an approach
Mm-hmm.
that fosters critical thinking,
Okay.
creativity, and self-awareness.
Yeah. It's about nurturing the whole person.
Exactly.
Not just preparing them for the workforce.
It's about equipping individuals
Yeah.
to be active, responsible citizens
Mm-hmm.
who are capable of critical thinking, problem solving,
Right.
contributing to the well-being of their communities and the planet.
So we've got economic systems. We've got education.
Mm-hmm.
What about, like,
Yeah.
politics? Surely they don't leave that one out.
They don't. They talk about the need to move away
Okay.
from these top-down,
Mm-hmm.
centralized models of governance
Okay.
towards more participatory and decentralized forms.
So less about power concentrated in the hands of a few.
Exactly.
More about empowering individuals and communities
Yeah.
to have a say in shaping their own destinies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They emphasize the importance
Mm-hmm.
of creating systems that foster dialogue, collaboration, and collective decision-making.
Right. So making sure that diverse voices are heard
Mm.
and that the common good is prioritized.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a pretty radical shift.
It is radical,
Yeah.
but they argue
Mm-hmm.
that it's necessary
Mm-hmm.
if we want to create a truly just and sustainable world.
Okay.
And they emphasize that this transformation,
Mm-hmm.
it won't be easy.
Right.
It won't happen overnight.
So,
It'll require a fundamental shift in our understanding
mm-hmm.
of what it means to be human.
Okay.
A recognition that we're not isolated individuals,
Right.
but interconnected beings,
Mm-hmm.
part of this vast web of life
Yeah.
that encompasses not just humanity,
Right.
but all living creatures and the planet itself.
That's a beautiful way to put it. But I have to ask,
Uh.
how do we even begin to make such a profound shift in
Right.
consciousness?
Mhm.
It feels like such a daunting task,
Yeah.
given, all of the entrenched power structures and
Right.
dominant narratives
Mm.
of our current world.
Yeah, it really does feel like a monumental challenge,
Right.
doesn't it?
Yeah, but thankfully,
Mm-hmm.
the report doesn't just leave us hanging with this huge problem and no solutions.
They offer some clues about how
Yeah.
these large-scale transformations
Mhm.
actually occur.
Okay, so where do we start?
Yeah, it starts with recognizing that we're not just talking about changing
Right.
laws or policies, right?
Right.
We're talking about changing the underlying operating system
Mm-hmm.
that's driving all of those things, the images
Right.
we hold about ourselves.
So it goes back to that self-portrait idea.
Exactly.
But how do you change a self-portrait that's
Yeah.
been painted over centuries?
Yeah,
Across entire cultures,
Yeah.
Where do you even begin?
it's a good question.
Yeah.
The report suggests that these shifts often start with individuals,
Yeah,
but really emphasize the power of self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
and personal growth as a driving force
Okay.
for broader societal change.
So it's like an inside-out approach
Yeah.
to transformation.
Right.
So it's not about waiting for someone else to fix things.
Right.
It's about each of us taking responsibility
Yeah.
for our own beliefs, behaviors, and the impact we have
Mhm.
on the world around us.
Exactly. The report talks about how individual transformation can create this ripple effect
Okay.
that eventually influences cultural norms and systems.
Interesting. So as more people embrace, a new way of seeing themselves in the world,
Mhm.
those ideas start to gain momentum.
Right. They start to influence others,
Right.
and eventually they reshape those dominant narratives.
Okay.
It's like a seed
Yeah.
that's planted, right?
Yeah.
It may start small,
Mm-hmm.
but it has this potential
Yeah.
to grow into something much larger.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So it's not about being a lone voice crying in the wilderness.
Right.
It's about recognizing that our individual choices and actions can contribute to a larger wave of change.
Exactly.
But are there historical examples?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
That'd
that
be-
actually of this kind of transformation actually happening.
Yeah.
It's one thing to
Right.
talk about it in theory,
Yeah,
but have we seen these operating system upgrades
absolutely.
actually play out in the real world?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The report actually draws parallels to historical examples,
Right.
like cultural revitalization movements,
Okay.
like the Renaissance or
Right.
the Reformation,
Okay.
where these new ways of thinking and seeing the world emerged
Right.
and eventually reshaped entire societies.
Okay.
They also talk about
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Kuhn's theory of scientific revolutions,
Oh, yeah.
where these anomalies
Right.
and inconsistencies in the old paradigm
Mm-hmm.
eventually lead to this radical shift in understanding.
So it's not just individuals having these aha moments.
Yeah.
It's about those moments kind of coalescing into a collective shift in consciousness.
Right, a paradigm shift
A paradigm shift. Yeah.
that transforms the way we see the world
Okay.
and our place in it.
So how do we go from
Yeah,
the individual awakenings
right.
to that collective transformation?
That's where collective action comes in.
Okay. So what does that look like?
The report really emphasizes the role of social movements,
Mm-hmm.
visionary leaders, and cultural innovators in spreading new ideas and shaping public opinion.
So it's not enough to have a great idea.
Right.
You need people who are willing to champion that idea.
Exactly.
To inspire others.
To inspire others.
And to build a movement for change.
Build a movement, yeah.
Okay.
Think about historical examples, like the Civil Rights Movement or the women's suffrage movement.
Yeah.
These were movements driven by
passionate individuals and groups
right.
who dared to challenge the status quo and fight for a more just and equitable world.
Right, and they understood the power.
And they succeeded.
Yeah.
Because they understood the power of storytelling, symbols, and art.
Okay.
To mobilize people and shift the narrative.
So it's about appealing to both
right.
our heads and our hearts.
Exactly.
Using logic and reason to kind of make the case for change.
Right.
But also tapping into people's emotions.
Yeah, their values.
Yeah, their values and aspirations. Making the change feel personal and relatable, not just some abstract concept.
Exactly. And as these new ideas gain momentum, they start to influence cultural institutions.
Right.
Like education.
Okay.
Media, politics, even business.
So it's like a domino effect?
Yeah, it's like a domino effect.
Once the first few dominoes fall, the rest start tumbling.
Exactly.
In this chain reaction.
Yeah. So it's not just about changing individual minds. It's about changing the systems and structures that shape our world.
Exactly.
It's about creating a new operating system.
Right. One that's aligned with our evolving understanding of what it means to be human.
Right.
And our interconnectedness with all life.
And that brings us back to
the
core message of this whole report.
The core message of the report.
The images we hold have the power to shape our reality.
Exactly.
If we want to create a more just, sustainable, and fulfilling future, we need to choose images that reflect those values.
Choose images that inspire us.
Images that inspire us to collaborate. To care for our planet. And to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of all beings.
Absolutely.
So it's not about waiting for...
It's not about waiting.
You know, some external savior or some technological fix. It's about each of us stepping up and becoming the change we want to see in the world.
Becoming the change.
Choosing to embody those qualities of compassion, cooperation, and interconnectedness that we want to see reflected in our society.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately the invitation that this report offers us to become conscious creators of our future.
Right.
To choose images that empower us and to work together to build a world that reflects our highest aspirations.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it has.
You know, exploring these ideas and grappling with the complexity of how our, self-perceptions shape the world.
Right.
But I think, the biggest takeaway for me is that we're not just passive passengers on this spaceship Earth.
We're the crew.
We're the crew, and we have a responsibility.
We do.
To steer it in a direction that benefits all life, not just a select few. And on that note, I think we'll
wrap things up. I want to thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
On this deep dive.
Yeah, may we all continue to question, explore, and believe in the power of humanity to create a more beautiful and just world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.